Can you hear me okay, Alicia?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, okay, good. I don't know
Oh,
why
you're
I'm signed in as
recording?
HLA
Okay.
meetings.
All right. I don't know.
It's like you're it today.
Well, I sent you a quick notice because remember I told you that my AC.
And maybe some of the, I don't know. I mean, we've been at like 125-ish, 120, 25, maybe a little more a couple nights, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's been full.
St.
Um,
Timothy's was full, and they expanded. I mean, 100 um, folks in Tarpon Springs. I know that they were full uh,
wow,
late last
wow.
night. Yeah, it was.
Okay. All right. So we will start the meeting, call the meeting to order. It's 3. Have we heard from Daryl, Kimberly, or Ross about their attendance?
We have Daryl and Kimberly are here,
Oh, okay, good. I didn't,
and
I've got to figure out how to see all my gallery and
it's
the agenda, but I'll just do all the gallery because I've got my agenda here. Yeah.
and Alicia, do we have quorum? I believe we do.
I think we should if we've got everybody here.
Yes, I think everybody's here. And I don't have to share the agenda, Kathleen. If you want to, I can just not share it. It's up to you.
I don't Does anybody on the call or on the meeting really need the agenda up?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's
Okay.
take it down. And if people want it popped back up, then we can go ahead
Okay.
and do that.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Good. Hi, Daryl. Good to see you. Lee, Kimberly.
Hello. Hello. Everybody
Good.
staying warm?
We are. We are. At least the sun's out. So thank you all for being here. We'll call to order the Advocacy Committee meeting. And just take a second. I was looking at our attendance there to review our purpose and, our certainly the mission of the CoC is to coordinate all our community partners, systems, and resources available with the goal of helping individuals and families to prevent, divert, and end homelessness. And our vision is to make homelessness rare, brief, and a one-time experience. I see we don't have anyone from lived experience. Gary's not on the call. Am I correct? I don't see him
He's not here
here.
yet.
Gary usually attends for our lived experience advisory committee. Okay. We're going to be we have kind of a little switch here for agenda items 2 and 3. Instead of doing the consent agenda item normally before this, I wanted to discuss the last meeting where you have the minutes here. And it was voted on that I made a statement that I'm not able to chair this committee any longer. And so Anne Marie has taken on that role of chair, Marie Winter. And but in the interim between that last meeting in November and this one, Esther Sani has indicated that she would be willing and excited. I don't want to speak for you, Esther, to chair the committee. So I'd like to have a brief discussion about that before we continue on with the agenda. And in reviewing the charter, we just have to have a chair and vice chair minimally for the officers, and they are elected by a majority of the voting members, and so that would be 4 would be required. Esther or Anne Marie, would you like to comment?
Sure, I'll let Anne Marie go first, and then I can dive in for sure.
Okay.
Um, so I think this committee is really continues to be needed. I think that the reason why it was set up has not changed, which is to help advocate to our local legislators, our state legislators, our national legislators, the importance of what the CoC does and how policy and funding need to reflect the priorities of the community as it relates to those that are experiencing homelessness. So that's why I joined. But that's why I advocated for the advocacy committee to be created. But really didn't want to be the chair because I just can't make that kind of commitment, and couldn't make that kind of commitment at the time. I agreed to be chair if there was nobody else that would do it. So Esther, if you have the time to lead this committee as Kathleen has done, and attended meetings with Sherry and worked outside of this meeting to develop letters to send to legislators and all those things that we've done, I totally support you in that, and can continue to be vice chair. So I'm happy to step back from agreeing to be chair if that's something that you can take on, Esther, because even though I want to do it, I just can't given my current responsibilities at the Area Agency on Aging.
No worries. I think probably the best space for me to start is just to give a little historical information on who I am. So again, Esther Sani, I have been a part of HLA COC probably in some way, shape, or form for the last 10 years. When I was not working for myself, I was the director of homeless services for St. Vincent de Paul, and I held that position for about 8 years. During the time that I was with St. Vincent de Paul, we actually, and I say we, myself and Sheila Lopez, who at the time was our COO at St. Vincent, but Sheila held the CEO position with Catholic Charities for many years before that. But Sheila and I stood up what would become the DEI committee for the HLA. I chaired that committee for some time. We changed during the time of my chairing, we changed the name of it. And then, of course, administration changes. And so what the Penn's eye needle looked like for that type of committee, we had to really do some reworking. Since then, I have sat on the executive committee and have been a voice in the business space. But as I shared with Kathleen, for me, advocacy in the space of homelessness, especially now, has got to be one of the focal points, and we have to continue to keep it at the focus of everyone's point. And I say it like that because so often we can get caught up in the minutia of everything else, and we will forget our homeless brothers and sisters, especially in a time like now when we are in our home. I can complain about my heat going out, but we have brothers and sisters that are sleeping on the street, and they don't even have a home that they can say, well, I can get under a blanket in my bed. And so we have to really be laser eye focused on this piece. And so for me, and as shared with Sherry when we talked, when I heard that Kathleen and Anne Marie were pushing for advocacy committee, I was like, oh my God, this is probably the most important committee of this organization, because if we're not advocating outside of what we're doing at the local level, or even pushing up what we're doing at the local level, then we've done a disservice. So I am excited to even be a part of the committee, and certainly as I have been committed for 10 plus years plus, having experienced homelessness myself as a teenager, I understand what this looks like. And so, Anne Marie, to your question, I can assure you that when I commit, I said this to Sherry, when I commit to something, I commit, and so I have to make sure that not only is the commitment in place, but also the ability to communicate the commitment also. So I'm more than willing to be a part, more than willing to chair. I think, the chair is just a title. We're all a part of the wheel and the spokes, making it push. And so I'm excited to be a part of it in whatever aspect that looks like.
Thank you, Esther. That was great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I see Teresa Jones has joined, one of my favorite people ever, and she has her hands up, I think. Teresa, you have your hand up?
No, it shouldn't be up. I'm just thanks for welcoming me.
You're just here. Okay, sorry. Do I have any other comments or questions about maybe, someone making a motion
Well,
about
that's what I
having,
was about to do, Kathleen.
okay.
I
Okay.
move that Esther becomes our new chair of the Advocacy Committee, and we had one vote for both of these positions separate, probably,
I think so. I think we would vote for Esther if
and then vice chair.
that's that. Yep. And
Okay.
Anne
then
Marie's already vice chair. And so what's nice about that
Oh.
is it could be a staggered
okay.
term so that we're not having to do a complete turnover every time.
Well, I nominate that Esther becomes the chair of that.
I'll second that.
thank you. Is that a second by you, Daryl?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. All right. So I have a motion and a second for Esther. Any further comment at all? All those in favor, you can indicate by either do a reaction of a vote yes or just say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Any who don't feel comfortable, say no. Okay. All right. Esther, congratulations. And thank you very much for taking on that position of chair of the Advocacy Committee. I'm excited about that and excited to continue to work with you. I will be a very active member of this committee, as I'm sure everyone who's here will continue to be. So you'll have a good team, but we need a real strong leader, and I'm excited that you've stepped up to do that. I really am grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I intentionally did not state how I show up in other spaces in the community on purpose. But I think, just for the sake of the conversation, I'm also the president of the St. Petersburg NAACP. And I am also the chair of the Youth Development Committee for Career Source Tampa Bay. And so, as we advocate both for our youth, we also advocate heavily for our adult brothers and sisters. So, they all intersect on purpose. And so, certainly looking forward.
Thank you. Thank you. And I see in the comments, Teresa, you said you didn't vote because you're not a member. Just a reminder, you can be a member, you just fill out a form. It's just kind of your interest. It's nothing more than that. And then attend one meeting and you're a member. So thank you. All right. We shall well, Esther, are you okay with me kind of guiding this meeting since my name's on the agenda, or would you like to take?
No, absolutely. And then I'll take it from you moving forward.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is the consent agenda. If you had a minute to look at the draft meeting minutes and the summary, and I did have a comment from Anne Marie about why we have the meeting minutes and the summary. And what my understanding is, the meeting summary is what gets attached to the board of directors agenda so that they know kind of what goes on in the different committees if they read them, which is a big if. But the meeting minutes are our pretty complete and extensive minutes that you can see are here. Sherry, are there anything more to add about that?
That's it. It was intended, in my understanding, to encourage more people to stay on top of what was going on between committees and to elevate any major takeaways or things that needed to be sent over to another committee.
Kathleen had a very minute correction. Kimberly Rogers is listed as a meeting attender and as a guest.
Oh yeah, she should be a member.
Oh, okay. So we'll take her off as a guest under there. Okay. All right. So do I have a motion to accept the minutes and summary with the correction of removing Ms. Rogers as a guest, as she's listed up here as a member.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank you, Lee. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good.
And thank you for clarifying the difference between the two.
Sure, sure. Okay. Agenda item then 4 is updates from Sherry on all sorts of legislation and things that are going
All
on.
sorts of things. Since
Yeah.
our last meeting, so when we met, it was November? Yes.
Yes.
Shortly after that, a NOFO dropped, Notice of Funding Opportunity from HUD. If you'll remember, or if you didn't, then I'm going to share right now. Last year, the fiscal year 24 NOFO that came out a year and a half-ish ago was intended to be a 2-year NOFO. HUD was allowing us a year off from a 2 to 3 month process, 3 to 4 month process, really, where we host a full competition locally. There's a very large application attached to it. It's not like a typical grant where the COC with the HLA, staffing the process, we send up to HUD all of the projects that we recommend. It's our COC portfolio. And then based on our score, some's competitive, some not competitive, then we would get our renewals renewed or not, and maybe even more bonus funding as well. In 24, when we sent it up, we received all of our renewals were renewed, as well as the tier 2, and that's the competitive part. That is based on the score from our consolidated application. So we received funding into our tier 2 as well. So we were competitive. We scored higher than average, higher than the median, I'm sorry, across the country. So that was good considering the year. We also received it was like $6.5 million. It's about $400,000 to $500,000 more than what we had applied for. So that's based on how much funds are available, as well as a score as well, and on just cost of living adjustments, fair market rates, and things of that nature. And so the extra year, when you consider it, 78% of our portfolio, and we did discuss this last time, that we knew that permanent supportive housing, so that's housing that is intended for folks who have significant disabilities. They're going to be chronic and have experienced chronic homelessness. So people who need that support, they do contribute to their housing based on their income. They do get services and supports, but we have had in the past, this first bring people in the door and get them settled and then provide, what they need. So like almost everyone receives, if not everyone, receives some sort of support and service. That when looking at that year-to-year leases, depending on a NOFO process, can be very, it's not very comfortable. I don't think it's a very comfortable position to be in. And so this is going to give us a year to actually do some planning. And that was completely taken away with the new administration, new priorities and things that were taking place. So what was shared during the last meeting was that HUD, with the new federal priorities and funding policies, housing first was taken, was going to be a no-no word. Services and supports were going to be required as a condition for housing assistance. Housing assistance being limited to 2 years, and really encouraging people or with the goal of self-sufficiency. And we know that with permanent supportive housing, you're talking about people with severe and persistent mental illness and chronic disabilities, it could be difficult to ever see that happening where someone could, without supports, maintain that housing status. And so permanent supportive housing, we knew was going to go. When the NOFO dropped shortly after our last meeting in November, the first one, there have been 3. We have not had a break. Today's my birthday, by the way. Anyway, so I'm not getting a break. It's going to happen in March. Y'all, it's happening in March. There's going to be a week in March I will not be.
No, you don't have a cold night shelter tonight. So
no cold night shelter. Yes. We have had everything has happened this year that has just like really put everything to the test, which is, so we learn. It's really good. Well, it toughens us. Or hardens us. And so, when that came out, we had the heads up that permanent supportive housing was going to be capped at 30%. In the past, there was no cap ever on anything. There were just eligible projects and non-eligible or ineligible projects. when the NOFO came out, it capped all permanent housing, which is 78% of our portfolio. And it included rapid rehousing. So all of our permanent supportive housing was under, and similar projects were under BOLI. And it also affected a couple of their permanent housing projects. And then we also have CASA, and HLA receives funding for HMIS and coordinated entry and for planning projects that are only available to the lead agency. When this came down, the permanent housing impacted was also with CASA for domestic violence survivors and their rapid rehousing program. So they have a transitional housing to rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing, that project type was considered permanent, taken off the table, even though that project only supports people. It can support people for longer, but typically it's about 3 to 4 months that people get support, and then they have their own leases and they move on, and it's permanent, and they're in charge of their leases. They own them. Transitional housing can be up to 24 months and cost quite a bit more. So when this NOFO came down, it replaced all that. It started prioritizing transitional housing and street outreach, shorter term. Attending to visible street homelessness was really the focus. Um, there were many things attached to it that we had discussed before, and we knew were coming, but that was a big one. 30% cap on any permanent housing, new or renewal. Yes, Teresa?
Can you pause for just a second? Yeah, because Teresa, there you go. Go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you. My question is related to the fact that the federal funds have basically suspended the funding for rapid rehousing, as I understand what Sherry is saying. Is this has the locally funded rapid rehousing programs, the ones that are funded through the city and St. Peter and the county, the CoLab, are those funds still in place, and are we advocating for an increase in funding from those agencies, from those governmental entities?
Yeah, so a clarification, the feds did not, HUD did not say that no funding could go towards those permanent housing options. It capped them at 30%, knowing that that they were not preferred, that the administration, HUD did say that they could take out even the non-competitive tier one, which is again non-competitive, that they could take out a project if it didn't align with them. So there was a lot of reading through the tea leaves while even reviewing this NOFO, and it never became 100. It was withdrawn before a court hearing was to be had, within 90 minutes of the first court hearing. And so then it became dead at that point. When, even before that NOFO was released, we were having emergency meetings with providers and funders to discuss this, focus on permanent supportive housing. After it was released, that we brought in rapid rehousing or brought in CASA. We've been meeting with all the funders. I know City of St. Pete and Pinellas County, they have worked to at the very least backfill some funds because there were some projects with BOLI that were already coming up to December 31st was the first date that a contract was going to end. In typical years, that's normal, where there may be months where a project is floating, knowing that they're going to be covered for that time. And the other projects, like with HLA and with CASA, they all end September 30th of 2026. So we still had time for all of them. When we had those discussions, that has been, if we pay for, if permanent supportive housing receives funding, what is it taking from? What are the ripple effects throughout the system? So that's something that we've been discussing with funders. And there's just a little bit more. So there was a second NOFO that was released that was even very confusing. It was for public review because it was there was a preliminary injunction on it, on anything that HUD could do. And then finally, there was another NOFO that was just recently released, and it's actually officially in the platform where we can actually have some instruction, which is basically an email's got to be sent. And the final NOFO that was released just within the last week or two was the instructions just came last week, was to honor the original NOFO from a year and a half ago and just do straight up renewals. So
we got jerked around for like 6 weeks.
That's what happened. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
sure around for 6 weeks. And
Each
everybody
NOFO
else,
was entirely different. It was there was contradictions within them, so it was a lot to work through. And we talked to other COCs and made a decision to temporarily pause the first one. Again, it went away. The second one is the one that is still out for public review. It is still everything's under litigation, even though HUD has opened up a process because the court order was there's not a final court order, but they were ordered to go ahead and reach out to all applicants about processing renewals. And so that is already underway. We've been in touch with the project applicants and renewals and made sure that everybody has all their T's crossed and I's dotted so that when HUD does come forward, we'll be ready for that. There's it really what it did is it gave us a chance also. So we're still in a period of uncertainty to know, like trying to tell. We know where things stand now. We can expect that the movement, the policy the funding recommendations or priorities are going to stick. How they look in the future with the the actual NOFO that's supposed to come out during the summer anyway, this upcoming summer. We have an idea of at least what to be considering now. So it bought us a little bit of time to really try to get some of that together instead of just such a quick. It's been nonstop meetings to make sure that to do the least harm as possible.
and
So
Sherry, when we look at what might be coming in the summer, we would expect to have those restrictions on the amount of permanent supportive housing, correct? It's like we got a little heads up in November-ish, and now we're
we can't. So there's that. I would look more at the actual policy priorities. So if they're prioritizing transitional housing and street outreach, then that means we need to be working also, the HLA and others need to be working with these new project applicants, these agencies that have never gone through the HUD it's been 2 decades since they've gone through the HUD NOFO process and entered anything into the platform. And so we're going to do some clinics with them to make sure that those applications are beefed up or they know what to expect. We could anticipate a NOFO to be dropped anytime. I don't think it'll happen this month, but I do think, congressional action also plays a role here. And the way the THUD bill has been going through, it seems favorable to COCs, but it does require, if it passes, it would require HUD to release a NOFO by June of this year for the next year funding cycle.
Anne Marie? Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry. I think we've all been kind of watching this going, oh my gosh, because it has been a seesaw with encouraging news that things aren't going to change at the moment. From an advocacy perspective, I wonder, and I'm sure you have, but maybe you could just share with us, like you're keeping potential funders that could come in to assist if needed in the loop, right? Because this summer, once we have a better sense of what's going on, and there is going to be that shortfall, of course your funded agencies are going to be looking for funding. But how does the COC help with that in terms of advocacy to potential funders? Whether that's the community foundation and having coffee with Duggan, which you've probably done, or some of the, I don't know if there's any family foundations that might fund this kind of thing. And I appreciate that the amount of money they could provide is not going to reach NOFO levels necessarily, but just keeping those people up to date now so that when and if you need the funds, it's a much easier ask than if you're going to them at the point where you need it.
Right.
And they haven't had those internal discussions. Thank you.
So we have made presentations with JWB, City of St. Pete, Pinellas County. I meet with Karen Yatchum regularly, and also with the Funders Council, and then bring in the providers and the funders together. And then those off meetings just with the agencies that are affected, with those funders as well. There's a, so making sure that I do, you do, we do type of philosophy, right? HLA, we cannot control business models. Like for permanent supportive housing, I would not be the best, and I wouldn't be the expert. Kevin's an expert, right? Bowley would be an expert on that. There are, they do receive different, so they have to work with their own, the Florida Finance, I cannot, Housing Finance Commission to make sure that, which has received calls from all over the state, of course, from all permanent supportive housing projects on some of the rules that constrain them from accepting other types of funding. So they have to work on that mix as well. We do have some, I just want to throw this out there. There are some permanent supportive housing projects that we've shared. Like HEP is completely self-funded. It's much smaller. BOLI is much bigger, of course. But it's not 100% on the NOFO, but it's a sizable amount that needs to be visited. Um, so they have been pulled in, and I know Kevin and Lariana, not only have we had our funders and providers meetings and have done a lot of presentations, but and giving all the municipalities, as many will accept us to give that update as part of our PIT report, um, that they are also having their meetings as well and reporting back on how that's going. I know Kevin in particular has been really working on other strategies.
And I will say, I don't know if you knew this, Anne Marie, but it was maybe in November. I think it was in November, maybe after Thanksgiving, Sherry. There was that big meeting we had at Bowley Centers with a lot of the providers. And Sherry's had a number of conversations with, as she said, Karen, and from my understanding, you can correct me, Sherry, that the county was able to backfill quite a bit, was ready to, if needed, to help Bowley. So people in that world are aware of all this stuff and had,
Yeah.
again, like you said, the whipsaw, they had like, we can get this money here if we really need it. And so, and then never mind, we're just gonna, so it's just, so I would expect, I would hope that if things develop that way, we will have some money to put in there to backfill, but yeah. Teresa?
Thanks, Kathleen. My question is, is there a representative from the Pinellas Community Foundation that's a member of the Funders Council? I know since Duggan has not been actively involved, there's been a lack of presence from that agency. And then the other agency I'm wondering about is the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete. I believe Susie Patterson is now on the board, I believe. And so I'm just wondering, at one point, Julie Rocco was a part of the Funders Council. She's also one of their staff members. So my point is that we need to, you know, I would encourage Duggan, and I think I said this to him when I met with him, probably I don't know how many months ago. It would be nice if he could assign a staff member to be involved with the COC. I know he may be too busy, but it would be great if we could have someone from his agency that regularly participates, so they have an understanding other than having to sit down and have coffee with Duggan. I mean, I know he knows the need. He was at one point very, very actively involved with the aid organization, and I just think it'd be valuable to have someone from his staff that is involved, particularly with the Funders Council, so they can hear from other funders where they're dedicating their funds, to address the needs that we have here. The other thing I was going to share is that I heard the word on the street, I'll put it like that, is that the city is facing an $18 million shortfall for next fiscal year. They're currently starting to develop the budget. I believe that the city council had a committee meeting last week, committee of the whole, to address the 2027 budget. And so hearing those kinds of things and having lived through decades of working for the city when there's been shortfalls and they've had to, reduce the budget, etc. I just hope that we are having active conversations with Avery
Mhm.
and or
And Amy.
Amy.
Mhm.
I mean, they know the need. I'm just hoping that they can continue to keep the funding at the level. I don't know the level now, but at one point it was several $100,000 each year that was advocated for, specifically rapid rehousing, in addition to the social action funding that they award, which I believe last I knew was 700,000 for the social action funds. But I'm just hopeful that when they start to tighten the budget, that there won't be some cutting. I would just encourage you to monitor that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and Councilmember Fig Sanders as well has been very involved in these conversations
Well,
too.
and I would say too, especially with our pit reports and with our 211 call analysis, uh, a large number, and I think at one point it was more than St. Pete, of our homeless are calls or homeless are coming from Clearwater, and Clearwater needs to make sure they know that as they're setting their budget. They certainly don't allocate as much from their budget to any kind of social service support within the community. They've switched to some kind of a, charity evaluation that can be lots of things, not necessarily our homeless population. But I would think Sherry and I maybe could send a joint letter to the Pinellas Community Foundation, the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete, uh, to ask them to join our funders council, that at these trying times, we really need their voice at the table. And I would ask you all, I should know this. I sit on the Pinellas, or the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay, for the Pinellas chapter, just to, you know, give them insight from boots on the ground, I guess. But have they in the past or ever supported any kind of funding for the HLA or social service agencies that are part of HMIS? Does anybody know?
Not that I can recall, Kathleen.
Okay. Because my understanding is they have all these different little funds that, wealthier people have set up or contribute to, that have different emphasis. But I'll reach out to them and find out. Yeah. Okay. They wouldn't be on a funders council, but Duggan, somebody from Pinellas community would, I think Duggan would assign a staff member, no problem. Um,
And there have been some discussions with Duggan that we're trying to push forward.
yeah,
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 it's
yeah, yeah.
with some little tweaks. Yeah.
But I think to Anne Marie's question about not blindsiding people, we're doing our best here. I think Sherry and the HLA and the providers are doing our best to loop in the funders and stuff.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so looking ahead we will continue with those. We're working on a funders spreadsheet right now, trying to collect all of the funding, what's eligible, in order for funders to share that across the board. At the same time, we're trying to do a strategic plan and a couple other things that have to happen this next meeting in February. But that is that's underway, and so they can have a really good discussion on funds that are available and not just be um, the bigger players involved. Um, are there any other questions around that? Um, the other things I want to mention, so Senate Bill 1132 by Senator Rasan, and then from Broward County, Senator House Representative Rosenwald. They did have, so last fall, This is an FCEH, the Florida Coalition on Homelessness. This was a COC wide. We as COCs voted for it. We wanted to see better discharge practices and more communication between COCs and discharging hospitals so that people were not being discharged into homelessness or showing up at like directions for a living with an, this is where I was discharged to, and there's no housing offering right there. So no communication whatsoever. So that has been something we have advocated for. Uh, when the original bill came out, it was going to be statewide, and there were a lot of concerns by the COCs, including myself, around the role of the lead agency in this initiative that was being proposed. It went away, and then just right before MLK Day, the Senate bill was released, and then the House bill, and instead of doing a statewide requirement to begin July 1st of this year, it included only 4 pilot project sites, and Pinellas County was one of them. And we had not had any heads up that was coming. So when I read through it, I was like, there's a lot of same issues still exist here where the most of the heavy lifting would belong to the lead agency with no additional funding, like coordinating care between all of the discharging institutions within Pinellas County with our providers throughout the COC. And we don't have staff for that. And so there did a lot of educating on what a lead agency does, what a COC is, and did significant revisions to parts of the bill over MLK weekend with Duval County's lead agency as well. She's been doing this for 2 decades. So we worked together with the lobbyist, Brian Cherry, and it was accepted by the House bill sponsor. So he took those revisions, was good, and then now he has decided, I just learned Friday, that he is deciding to table it for now, which is a good move. It's not going to die for next year. It will come back. There's still a need for this to come back, and he's behind that. But to have more conversations with stakeholders, because while we had our issues with unfunded mandates and a really heavy lift for the lead agency that without the staffing to support that, then you also had hospital associations reaching out too. So getting the stakeholders together over the summer before the next legislative session is going to be really important. And that's what his next step is.
That's a great example of advocacy.
Yeah, it was, and educating,
Yeah.
and here's some better language. This is
Right. No, that's a
Yeah.
great example of, helping to influence policy.
Yeah. I was really, really
Well,
relieved that was
Oh,
accepted.
We were in support of this bill,
Yeah.
generally speaking, because we too would get calls from hospitals wanting to discharge seniors, asking us to provide them with accommodation.
Yeah.
Which is shocking, that they would do that, but you see that all the time. So, anyway, great example of advocacy.
The intent of the bill's great. We want
Right.
to keep that going. It just has to be done in a way
Devil's
that's
in the details.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And maybe what we could, and Teresa, I see your hand, so sorry to jump in, but ideally this summer, or right after session, May, June, whatever, we would have some roundtable with some hospital CEOs and our COC members and providers and Senator Roussan, and let's hash it out right. What are the things that really have to be worked on? And if we do that in May, June, whatever, July, then it can
It'll be ready for
really
next year.
work next year. Yeah.
And Roussan is terming out, I believe, this year, and so he won't be presenting. So Rosenwald is we will definitely be working with Rosenwald, but and Roussan, but that needs to happen. And I was going to ask if anyone knows of existing meetings that instead of creating a new one, like if there's a place for us to plug in, that might be smart. I've been talking to Central Florida Behavioral Health Network because they also have discharging facilities as well and working on an MOU with them for all their discharging facilities. So that's if you are aware of an existing meeting, that'd be great. Otherwise, and we have to do some mapping as well of who all are we talking about that would be entering into HMIS or having to consult with.
Right, because ideally you'd come to that meeting, the providers with this is or the hospitals, the providers, this is the best practices. This is the way I see best practices, so that you're all, yeah. Teresa, did you
Teresa?
lower your hand?
I lowered my hand because Sherry touched on what I was going to mention about Senator Rousson's terming out this year or after this year. So hopefully someone else will will pick up the mantle and be a sponsor on the Senate side.
Yeah, that's going to be a loss for sure.
Any other legislative updates?
Yes, we have just a couple of highlights outside of that, and that is, let's see, that's still alive right now. So the session start began January 13th. It ends March 13th. For next year, it'll begin in March. So this is the early session. We have, there's a budget is still going to be a big thing, and property taxes and all of that, of course. Hopefully things are ironed out earlier than they were last year. Rural communities, if there was I believe you received a legislative update with some of like a spreadsheet that shows I know you have appropriations. As far as the
Yes.
the Coalition to End Homelessness and what we've been pushing for so far, the governor's proposed budget is aligned with everything that the COCs have been asking for around staffing grants and challenge and everything, except for the challenge unsheltered grant. So it gets confusing. There's a challenge grant that has a lot of flexibility to it based on what a COC prioritizes as projects and initiatives that it needs to take on. The Challenge Unsheltered was a non-recurring grant last year to help harden up, beef up, support emergency shelter operations and infrastructure, even facilities. And so that has not, the ask has been to make that recurring and maybe even part of Challenge. And so that there's $0 for that, and 10 million across the state was the ask. So that is the only thing to update there for right now. Rural communities, when it comes to SHIP funds, there is since we are a larger county, the rural counties, the bill proposes for there to be a minimum allocation of $1 million per county. And so that would leave $18.8 million that would, right at the moment, have to come out of somewhere. And we're afraid it would come out of the larger counties. And so the ask from the House side, this is going through the Senate, the House is advocating for there to be a hold harmless provision for larger counties so that those funds can come out of the general fund or general revenue in order to make up for that difference and that we're not penalized because we still need those funds. And let's see, ADUs, so those are accessory dwelling units. Those are like if I wanted to put, make my garage into a livable space and an apartment and rent it out, creating another affordable housing option. That local ordinances are being encouraged. This is a bill right now to watch. Local ordinances for allowing for ADUs to be included. And then finally for SHIP, there's I think a 20 or 30%, I can't remember, a cap on manufactured housing. And there's a bill out to remove that cap for manufactured housing. I don't know what that looks like for hurricanes. I'm not the expert on that. I'd be a little concerned, but it's to make more affordable housing available. And so those are the big ones. And that is it that I have for legislative updates. If there are no questions, or if there are, or anything you all are seeing.
I have one that I keep an eye on here in Pinellas County because it's by one of our Pinellas reps. And so this is House Bill 197 from Bernie Jacques. And this one really targets immigrants. And I think it's going to have repercussions. Clearwater has a huge Hispanic population, and most of them are from the Hidalgo region of Mexico. And a lot of the children are born here in our country, but a lot of the parents are not. And so this one really hits them financially. So it prohibits undocumented immigrants from opening bank accounts, obtaining loans, or accessing state-backed homeownership programs. It bans them from sending money out of state if they're illegals. It creates a legal presumption that undocumented drivers are at fault in car accidents unless proven otherwise by clear evidence. And it imposes massive fines, 10,000 to 250,000, and license revocations for businesses hiring unauthorized workers. And so that's the House bill that Bernie Jacques has sponsored. The Senate bill there's also a Senate bill, and it's moved through 3 committees. But this one it was on the front page of the Tampa Bay Times, I think Saturday or Sunday, I don't know. But it mandates that all commercial driver's license testing and instruction be only in English. So it's a horrible legislation, I believe. And I think it's going to have some ripple effects in our economy and in our housing and in the families in Pinellas County. So we just got to keep an eye on that. I mean, yeah. Esther?
Yeah, something you said, Kathleen, just reminded me of a discussion that we had at our most recent NAACP meeting. One of our executive committee members manages properties, and she said that Department of Housing, well, HUD, just released. This was last week, Tuesday. Just released something called cleaning house orders, and that is the immediate citizenship verification for all tenants in HUD funded housing nationwide.
Wow.
So what they're saying is, and they call it leaving no stone unturned. They are mandating that any complex, any property that receives HUD dollars must immediately go through all of their tenants and verify their citizenship. And this, of course, is in collaboration with DHS. Um, they are just going through it, and I'll put it in our chat. Um, and I believe it is saying that they have 30 days to fully review and then verify. If they don't, they will face HUD sanctions. What it doesn't say, and I can again, I'm gonna see how I send this to you. It doesn't say what happens, and I would assume what happens is if they are deemed not to be a citizen, then they're either going to be targeted by ICE and also probably lose their housing. I'm putting it in our chat. I think this is something that we really need to be mindful, follow, but we also need to reach out to our local housing authorities because all of them have received this as of last week. And, one, to see where they're moving with this, we need to know um, what these families are going to look like, what's going to happen with them. And also we need to do a follow-up with our local legislation to see where they're standing on this. We were just notified of this last week, Tuesday.
And what you're looking at, Esther, does it
Mhm.
use the word save, SAVE system?
Yes.
Okay, so
Well, hold
here's
on. Wait a minute. Let
does
me
it
let me let me be clear. I said yes too fast.
my understanding,
Um,
that's something we've been working with Arrow, trying to get, because no nonprofit, no agency has access to the SAVE system.
yeah,
A lot of municipalities don't.
it's the EIV Save Tenant Matching Report is what it's called.
EIV, okay.
EIV Save Tenant Matching Report, and it cross-references Inventory Management System, PIH Information System data with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, so USCIS.
Is there an effective date or is that proposed, Esther? Is it already in effect or
No,
what?
it's in effect. They have 30 days to
From
show that
where?
they have from 30 days as of when our EC, she received it on Monday, so 30 days from last Monday, to not only have shown that they have gone through all of their tenants, but have identified who or who does not have citizenship and have sent that information up.
Do we have any idea if everybody got that email like at the same date so that we're all there, nationally, there's just some big 30-day deadline and then,
I'm gonna look into that. I
Mhm.
would think like the PHA, the public housing authorities would have for sure. And I'm curious. I'm going to follow up with Elise and Danielle to find out how they're able to even respond to that. Because there
I mean,
really
he has a
isn't a
staff who can do that,
mechanism. I don't know
right?
that they would have access to SAFE. That's something that we've been talking about for the better part of a year now as a concern. Yeah.
Well, there's no,
And then there's other concerns too, of course. I mean,
yeah,
not
yeah.
just, yeah. That's
No lack of issues to keep track of and to
no.
figure out how to tackle and strategies and stuff. Yeah. Anybody else have any other legislative updates? No? Okay. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 5, the committee leadership, the role and the next steps are work plan and discussion. So I would, invite Esther and or Anne Marie to join in. I would just say, I attended for about, I don't know if it was 6 or 7 months in a row, so 7 meetings in a row, the Lived Experience Advisory Committee meetings. And they have them monthly, and they're at, what's the name of that library?
The Barbara Ponce Library in Pinellas Park.
Yeah, and they're well attended, and to be they're very well attended, and people participate respectfully. They're meaningful. Members are official members of the committee are given a stipend, which helps, which is fine, but just so that you're aware. But they have been, it's the most well attended committee I think we have, and I wasn't able to attend last month's meeting, and I'm not able to attend this month's meeting because I have other commitments, but they are engaged, and they have shown up at the Pinellas legislative delegation meeting and spoke. One of the members was very active. She was from Clearwater, Jennifer, who would speak at council meetings, and that was good, but she moved back to North Carolina. And they have worked hard. I worked with them for, I don't know, 3 or 4 meetings in a row because it took a while to brainstorm. And they composed that poem, and it's Reflections from the 49th Street Bench poem that they gave permission for us to use, for anyone in the CoC to use in advocacy. I submitted it to the Tampa Bay Times for a printed, commentary, and they haven't printed it, obviously. Graham Brink, the editor, got back to me and said, hey, I'd like it in this format. And then I sent it to him, and then it was like dead. So they've got it, the Catalyst, I haven't sent it to the Catalyst or things like that. But we can think about doing that. So anyway, that's what I've got to say about those 2 pieces. And then I would think, with going forward and developing a work plan or discussion, we might want to have just a little subcommittee of people, because we only meet once a quarter. It's like we need to meet more frequently when all this nonsense is going on. So maybe a few people want to get together and figure out how we want to proceed in approaching who, when, and with what. I know, Sherry, in our meeting minutes, you were going to provide like some bullet points or a 1 to 3 minute statement we could read at a council or commission meeting, which is fine. But I mean, things change so quickly. You could be standing up there as we did during the St. Pete council meeting, talking about cuts in permanent supportive housing. And then it's like, nope, never mind, 4 weeks later. But anyway, yeah, I think we need to prioritize and yeah, figure out. Anne-Marie, go ahead.
I just wanted to just mention the poem. I think it's beautiful. I think it humanizes this issue. And I hope that it does get published because this talks about the humanity of those experiencing homelessness in a way, coming from those that are experiencing it. So it's really beautiful. Thank you for taking the time to help them with that and for trying to get it published. I'm sure you guys have put it on social media and everything, but it would be nice for a wider audience to see it.
And I think my conversation with Esther said she thought the Catalyst would be likely to publish it. I don't know that the Catalyst, but we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have like an online submission form where you can send it. But maybe include this with letters to legislators as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Just as an attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sherry, any update on those talking points or what people might be able to read or say? I know Daryl had asked.
I think that the talking points we have right now that can stand still are the ones we have from FCEH. Those kind of cross borders, we're still talking about budgets. But as far as talking point, well, the position paper we put out in November had to completely it was by the middle of November, it was useless. And then I want to add, so when we talk about work plan, just being mindful of where we have the most strategic and disciplined areas to work within, and that's locally. And when we talk about like federal legislation, there are many advocacy organizations. You have the National Association and our National Alliance to End Homelessness. There are several, CSH. There are true blue advocates out there who are pushing, they're like bring up litigation and things of that nature. The providers are nonprofits. The COC is not, it's an entity. So it's like the COC can take certain stances on things. As a lead agency, we are a nonprofit. With the NOFOs that have come down, it's been very clear, like, so I'm taking the stance of educating as a nonprofit. I like the word education just when I'm talking about my own, because we do need to be mindful of who the allies are, who can take up the mantle and speak, and information can be shared. But as far as like my being a spokesperson as an advocacy position, it would be could be really detrimental to our funding. And so we need to make sure not to put ourselves at risk. And to just remember where we can have the most impact, and it really is local and state. So there are people who are taking up the national cause. I also want to add COCs. Finally, I can't believe this is just now happening. Beginning, I think it was don't misquote me. Within the last couple of months, there was a meeting in San Diego. I was not able to attend because of the timing of it all. But the COCs are getting together to form a formal association of COCs across the nation, so we could have that voice. Because even the NAEH and they're more all like a broad umbrella of housing situations that aren't necessarily the voice of COCs. And COCs, I want to just raise this up again, are still not. There is still a concern that funding, that the administration is pushing for funding for COCs to cease to exist and for funding to become state block grants.
Yep.
In Florida, which tends to support privatized nonprofits to manage public funds with oversight of the state, we're different than other states. And so I can't imagine DCF wanting to take this all on their own. They would probably try to keep some similar structure going on, but that is something also to keep in mind too. That, yeah.
Yeah. And as when we were at the beginning of this time last year, learning more about different COCs, and they're all set up. I mean, many are set up very differently, and so it'd be hard to, yeah. Okay, but the federal talking points, are moved from what was developed in November. But can you develop something that we can use locally for our Pinellas County?
I think
Bullet points.
I think that the idea of having a core group that may be like a subcommittee who's willing to get together and talk through those and what would be important and who should be getting them would be helpful, as well as when we talk about a work plan for the annual work plan, who's willing to present, who would be good presenters
Right,
for
right,
what, and
right,
because we do
right.
get a lot of requests from like community groups,
Mhm,
and there's
mhm.
24 municipalities that we do try to hit, and we do offer that
Right,
up, but
right.
being mindful of that.
And it would be ideal to have a lived experience member with us, with whoever, to do a presentation. And I think that they would, many of them, be willing to accompany whoever wants to make a presentation with them jointly. That's all. Yeah.
We had so Anne Marie and Daryl both have
Oh,
had
okay.
hands.
Okay. Daryl, want to go first?
Yeah, I wanted to share that there's power in presenting this information locally, and I'd be willing to join that sort of subcommittee. I think you always get mileage with local politicians if you talk about veterans, because I'm a veteran and I'd be willing to stand up in front of a county commission and talk about veterans experiencing homelessness, share statistics, do some education, because I think there's a lot of power in that. And it's hard. It would be hard to get any politician to say no to anything having to do with veterans. So
Yeah.
I think that might be an angle to go.
Right. Good. And domestic violence. Yeah. Before I continue, it just clicked. So I've suggested a smaller group to talk about prioritizing the issues and all that, but I'm not the chair. So Esther, I don't want to step on any of your feet if you don't think, or either of your feet, if you don't think a smaller subcommittee. We are a small committee as it is, but it's hard to coordinate schedules. I know with Sherry, everybody's super busy. Anne Marie's super busy. So
Yeah, maybe
I'll
a
let you
subcommittee
take
isn't
that.
the answer. Maybe
Yeah.
it could be people who aren't even voting members though too. I mean, that they don't
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
official members of the committee.
Yeah. Right. So Esther, what do you think about a smaller group to help prioritize the advocacy topics and maybe a strategy?
Oh, absolutely. I believe in many hands, light work. And so we absolutely can do that. That will alleviate the inability sometimes to navigate schedules. We can get together smaller, bring things forward, move it much faster. I agree with that.
Okay. And I'm sure we're all good with virtual meetings because they're pretty effective. You're not spending 45 minutes in a car.
Of course.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else on the committee leadership role and next steps work plan discussion? Would I just say that, Esther, you'll get together with Sherry and maybe send out an email to our advisory committee to ask who's willing to be on that smaller group and what would be good windows to meet in.
Of course. Sure, we can get together after this one or tomorrow. Okay.
And I would be I would be willing, and Daryl said he's willing, at least here. If you want to anybody want to raise their hand just to get things going, you're welcome to. No pressure. Okay. All right, we'll move to agenda item 6, seeing no hands up. Open forum. Anything else? Anyone wants to discuss anything we need to be aware of. Certainly we know this time of year, our city and county, our municipal 24 are involved in budget discussions and, setting those budgets to be approved at the end of September. They go into effect October 1st. So the sooner, the better. And I think, to maybe Anne Marie's point and the point with Senator Roussan is a lot of it is educating about this is what the COC does and this is, the important work in our community and we need to keep these partnerships going. Yeah. And I think our goal too is, as we said earlier in the meeting, get more funders to participate as we face more difficult time with the next NOFO. So Sherry and I will reach out to Pinellas Community Foundation of Tampa Bay, and the Foundation for a Healthy St. Pete jointly. Is that okay, Sherry? Does that make sense? Okay. We'll do that by the end of this week. Sounds good? We can do that.
Is the Allegheny Franciscan Ministries, are they still active in Pinellas?
I've never heard of them.
Yes, Kim, they are. Kimberly. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And they have different kinds of grants. They have small grants like the TAO grant, that's 10,000 or less. But then they have some big ones as well.
Yes.
There is a grant cycle. You have to apply. Their CEO and leadership team are very focused on marginalized communities. They've done a lot of work with migrant farmers.
Wow.
Ruskin, Waimama, South Florida, and the organizations that seek to support them. They've done a lot of work on DEI initiatives that they continue to do very proudly. So they're a really strong organization. Eileen Coogan has been their CEO for many, many years.
What's the name of the org? Allegheny something?
Allegheny Franciscan Ministries.
Yeah, I would think they would be very concerned about the immigration.
Yes.
Legislation, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, Teresa.
Pinellas is one of their areas. Yep, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. Yeah.
Thanks, Kathleen. The question from Kimberly just made me think again about, as far as the HLA staff structure, we don't really have someone that does development for identifying grants and other sources of revenue, do we? I mean, and I'm asking that question because I can recall about 3 EDs ago, back to when Susan Meyer was the executive director and Susan Finlaw DeSalt was there. Susan's Finlaw DeSalt's, one of her primary roles was grant writing and identification of, basically serving sort of like a development director. And, we keep, like Kimberly has mentioned, the Allegheny Franciscan Ministry. I mentioned the Foundation for Healthy St. Pete, and I'm certain that there's others, but I think we have it's a lot to expect Sherry and the limited staff that she's got to try and develop other sources of revenue for the organization. I serve on other boards, and some of those nonprofits, they have their annual fundraising drive outside the Giving Tuesday. I mean, they do banquets, they do all kinds of things. And so I'm just wondering if anyone is really serving in that role, besides expecting Sherry. I mean, she got a lot of balls to juggle.
Right.
I'm just talking out loud, thinking out loud, so to speak.
I want to lean in there, Ms. Teresa. I think you're spot on. Sherry, it would be interesting across the different committees and boards for you to kind of do a filler to see who does fundraising, who writes grants. I know I write grants. I know several others on the committee writes grants. Boards are supposed to truly be a working board. And when I think of the different boards that I am a part of, there's an expectation in being a part of that board that you will commit to some extent. And that commit could be whatever your gift is or finding the connections that are needed. So I would be interested to see how we can, and same Kathleen, as our chair. How we can lean on what we have in the gold mine space of everybody that sits at the table to get them to lean in with their gifts in this space. Because I do agree it is impossible for you to, or even the, maybe the one or two that you have doing it with you to do it on your own. Susan Myers was a powerhouse um with all of that she brought, and I remember her well as Susan Finlaw, and then after that Amy Foster, and so leaning in that space would probably be beneficial.
I want to make sure I understand one thing though, just to clarify. So I know that a lot of the grants that were applied for, HLA had kept moving on forward with over the years, and the ones that I'm aware of, the HLA was receiving and was providing direct service through those, and that's something that we are trying to get away from because we're competing against providers. So would this be for providers? Because we do any state level and federal, of course. With local ones, it's about knowing which priorities. So we will assist a provider in a grant if it's we share grant opportunities through social media and through newsletters and updates to providers, of course. We're wanting to begin having more grant clinics so that to support providers. They have their own grant writers, they do very well in that area too. But as far as like COC wide projects, to build that up, a lot of that was coming straight to the HLA, and so we've been trying to encourage more and more for providers to take that on. So I just want to understand the parameters of like what they were doing because during COVID season, especially, we assumed a lot of provider work, and it's just not sustainable with our model. But we do need to help with any applications and building up funds within the community here.
Okay,
Anne
I was
Marie?
leaning more in that space because I do remember during COVID there was a lot of provider work taking place within the HLA. I think, as a matter of fact, my firm contracted as a supervisor at one point to the diversion team, and so all right, so we're shifting away from that, is what I'm hearing you
From
say.
HLA receiving, right,
Okay,
and supporting
okay.
the providers to do that work. If there was a COC wide initiative, then that would be something we'd want to do. But we do share like any funding announcements that come that would be provider specific. But it really was creating kind of a conflict of interest plus an issue with our own operations where we couldn't function as a lead agency because it was outside of our mission. But
Anne Marie?
Yeah, so I agree with you, Sherry, because I kind of see the Area Agency on Aging similar to a COC in that the Area Agency on Aging is a funding body and provides technical assistance, monitors. But we do a lot of advocacy education to other potential funders, not for us, but for our partner agencies, because we have the data that we can put together that talks about kind of trends, that talks about needs on a more global level. And by global, I mean, county or municipality that a provider wouldn't necessarily have because they have the 200 people that they serve, whereas you have the 2,000 people. And those numbers are just for example purposes. So I think that was kind of my direction in terms of talking to funders was not necessarily that we would be applying as a COC, because the HLA has its own board, right? That could be doing those kind of things, but more to be the voice for the greater umbrella organization that the COC is.
Yeah.
So that Allegheny Franciscan would have a better understanding of the whole ecosystem, so that when a provider wanted to apply, it made more sense for the potential funder. If I explain
It does.
that.
It makes perfect sense. So that's like with the Funders Council and convening with them. We have one-on-ones with the county and with various municipalities as well, the bigger funders. And we also provide letters of support and or coordination for our providers too. Several have gone out recently, so that's another one. But I think we can assist more in preparing project applicants for different types of grants and maybe spotlighting that in regular open hours around grant making and recipients. Yeah. But reaching out like the Allegheny bunch, I have not, I'm glad that was raised up. And so that's another group to reach out to for sure and provide some information.
Okay. Anything else people would like to discuss or add before we adjourn the meeting? So we do have some things we'll follow up on. We should have some talking points and, a 1 to 3 minute statement that's local, in light of what we know now, as our funders and municipalities in the county are working on their budgets. I would encourage, the LEAK meeting is next Thursday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry, right? I think it's next Thursday, because that's when my parents are here and we have tickets to some event in St. Pete. So I'm not able to attend that meeting, but I drop into the library if you can. And the pit count went well. And I think, yeah, Sherry, you had texted me at like 11, I think 11 or 11:30 in the morning, and said we'd already met that number that we surveyed last year.
I was corrected and we were ahead of the curve. At the very end, though, I cannot confirm, nothing's confirmed yet because we don't know how many duplicate entries were done, but it appears like it was very similar to last year.
Okay.
Even though we had, so just when you all received this is very interesting. We had 478 volunteers register. I'm trying to get the actual confirmed number that participated. That would have been up there with 2024, which was a high turnout and a very anomaly in the count that went where it ticked up compared to, since 2016 going down. It went down substantially last year because of the anti-camping bill, but also there were some increased funds from the state for prevention and diversion, and then and emergency shelter. And then, yeah, I'm really curious to see because it seems like it's kind of on par with last year. And there were people out. We had Cold Night Shelter, which supported better, a better response rate. So I think this year will be a good stick to judge by.
It was frigid at 5. It was just cold. But we were able to capture people as they were leaving the shelter, and then the soup kitchen and all that. But yeah, it was a good day. I mean, it warmed up a little bit. Sun came out at about 11. So, yeah. So
I think
thank you
it's a
to
good
everybody.
pit count. We haven't heard anything, no major drama or anything that occurred. So that's good. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, if I hear any updates on that House bill that Bernie Jacques is sponsoring that targets immigrants here, I'll send out a blast I'll send it to Sherry and Esther, and then y'all can decide if you want to send it out to our little group, our little committee, and just so we know what's going on. Okay. All good?
It's good.
Okay. All right, then with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 4:23. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope you stay warm. It is warming up this week, so we all
Bye,
good.
everyone. Stay safe and
Bye-bye.
warm.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.